Hello everyone, my name is Chandra Prakash Bhavana and today I want to discuss interview question and the company name is the CRM Travel IT Solutions. Company location is Noida and the interview date was the July 5, 2025 and this was the face-to-face interview. So they asked me what is the difference between the GET post and server in PHP. So first of all, these are the super globals in PHP. So get is a PHP super global variable that is used to collect form data or values sent in the URL using the HTTP GET method. It stores the data as an associative array where the keys are the parameter names from the URL and the values are the data passed. So for example, you have an URL page.php and a query string city equal to Delhi. So then in php.php, then in page.php, this code echo $get city. So the output will be the Delhi. So the purpose of the get is the retrieves data. So how it retrieves data? Data is sent in the URL. So the example.com query string name equal to John and get name retrieves John. Second is the post super global. So purpose retrieve data. This also retrieves the data. How data is sent in the HTTP request body, not visible in the URL. For example, form submission post email retrieves the data email. Third is a $_server. So $_server is a PHP super global variable which holds information about the headers, paths, and script location. Okay, so which holds information about headers, path, and script location. So that is the H, you can remember it, HPS. Okay, that is the header, path, and script. So for example, you have a query, you have a PHP code, echo server PHP shelf, server name, HTTP host, HTTP refer, HTTP user agent, script name. Okay. So the second question they asked me, what is the $_session in PHP? Okay, so generally session stores data server side for the logged in users. So step 1, start the session. You must start the session at the top of the each file that use session. So let us suppose you have a file login.php. So session_start. So it will start the session. Then set session variables like the credentials. So $_session username equal to Chandra, $_session logged in equal to true. So echo session variable are set. Second file you have is the dashboard.php. So you have to write session_start inside the PHP code. So it will start the session. So check if the user is logged in. So if is set $_session logged in and $_session logged in triple equal to true. So echo welcomes session username, else please log in first. Third file is the logout.php. So session start inside the PHP code. So it will start the session, then destroy all session data like session_unset, which will destroy the variable, and session_destroy. Okay, so echo you have logged out. Third question they asked me, what is the cookie in PHP? So okay, what is a cookie in PHP? So cookies stores data client side on the user's browser for both logged in and non-logged in users. So using cookies. Cookies allow you to store data on the user's browser which persist even after the browser is closed. unless the cookie expires. So set cookie user data temporary value time 3600. So that means cookie expire in 1 hour. Access the cookie if is set cookie user data echo user data, the output is the temporary value. They ask me what is the curl in PHP. So curl, that is the client URL library. Client URL library is used in PHP to send HTTP request, fetch data from APIs and interact with external services. So basic URL request get fetch data from URL. So $URL equal to, you have what do you call one example UPI, example API, then initialize a curl init curl, then set options curl set ops $ch curl opt return transfer true, then execute request $response equal to curl underscore execute, then close URL session curl underscore close, then output echo $response. Okay. So what it does, initialize a curl session, fetches data from given URL and return the response instead of outputting it directly. So sending data with curl, that is the post request. So submit data to API. Let us suppose you have $URL in the post and then data title body username, then ch is equal to curl init URL, then curl set opt ch curl opt return transfer, then post fields, then HTTP headers. Okay, so response curl underscore execute $cs, so curl close echo response. So what it does, sends a post request with JSON data, uses curl opt post field to send data, and set content type application underscore JSON in the headers. So you can do these things in the Postman also. Okay. So sending data with curl, that is a put request, which updating data using put. So $URL you have URL, then $data you have, then $ch equal to curl init. Now curl set opt, curl opt return transfer, then customer request put, then post field JSON encode, then HTTP header. Okay, then $response equal to curl execute $ch, then curl close ch, so echo response. So what it does, sends a put request to update data. Okay, so fourth is the sending data with the curl, that is the delete request, delete data from API. So you have a $URL equal to URL, then $ch curl underscore init URL, then curl set opt curl return transfer true, and curl custom request delete. So response curl execute and curl close and echo response. So what it does, sends a delete request to remove a resource. Fifth is the handling curl error. Check if the request was successful. So $ch curl init and then your URL, then curl set opt ch curl opt return transfer true. If $response equal to curl execute, then if curl error number $ch, so curl error, else response $curl ch. What it does, use curl error number and curl error to check for errors. Sixth is the fetching data with the authentication. Some APIs require authentication. So let us suppose you have a $URL, one API you have, and then $ch curl init, then curl set opt return transfer, curl user password, username password, basic authentication, then curl set opt HTTP header authorized bearer your token here, then $response curl execute ch, then curl close ch echo response. So what it does, use basic authentication with the curl opt user PWD and user bearer token authentication in header. Next question they ask me, how can we use curl without waiting for the response? Okay, we don't want to wait for the response. So how can we use it? To use curl in PHP without waiting for the response, also called the asynchronous or fire and forget request. Okay, to use URL in PHP without waiting for the response, also called asynchronous or fire and forget request. So you can option 1 use curl opt timeout ms or curl opt timeout. This will limit the time spent waiting for a response. So let's say you have a $ch curl in it, and in the bracket you have some API, then curl setup return transfer to, then curl timeout 100, that is 100 millisecond, very low timeout, then curl execute and the curl close. So this does not truly make the request in asynchronous, but simulates no waiting by quitting early. Okay. Option 2, use fs use f sock open, more control real async. So $fp equal to $f sock open example.com 80 error number error str 30. So if $fp and then inside the if you have the conditions $out equal to get target.php, then $out host example.com, then $out connection close, then f write fp out $out f close, don't wait for the response. So this is a real fire and forget method. You can remember it like f and f, like full and final. You can remember it like this method. It sends the request and close immediately. So you should write it here only. You should write it here. Fire and forget. So you can write it F and F. Okay. So that you can remember it. So option 3, use execute function to run curl in the background like the Linux, Unix only. So $URL equal to, you have one, what do you call, API, then execute curl -s URL /dev /null 2 is greater than &1 and 1 and okay. So this fully runs the curl request in the background, PHP continuous execution immediately. Option 4, you have the fork a request using the proc open or open advanced. You can also use the open function like this, open, and in the argument curl s https and then your API and then greater than dev null and r. Okay. So summary is we don't want to wait for the response of API. So we have 4 methods for that. So first is the curl of timeout, real async no, just cuts off early. Second is f sock open, real async yes, good for the get request. Third, exec execute curl yes, real async yes, notes best for the Linux or Linux simple. Okay. Fourth is the open, so real async yes, background shell process. Okay. So next question they ask me, what is the difference between session and cookies? So session stores data server side for the logged in users. Cookie stores data client side on the user's browser or for both logged in and logged in the user. So immediately he asked me the question, next question, which is more secure, session or cookie? So session is more secure, stored on the server, not in the user's browser. only a session ID is sent via cookie or URL to the client. Data is not exposed to the client, automatically expires after the inactively or logout, harder to manipulate or steal if the HTTPS is used properly. Cookies, less secure, stored on the client side user's browser, can be easily read, modified or stolen using JavaScript if not HTTP only. XSS cross-site scripting attacks can be intercepted if HTTPS is not used via sniffing and can persist even after the browser is closed unless you set it as a session cookie. So summary for the which is more secure session or cookies. Okay. So feature session and cookie. So storage session in server side, cookies in client side. Security session more secure, cookies less secure. Tempering session hard to temper, cookie easy to temper if not encrypted. Size limit session larger, server controlled, cookie small, only 4 KB limit. Visibility session hidden from user, cookie visible in the browser storage. So the best practice is use session to store sensitive data. For example, user ID, roles, auth tokens. Use cookies for non-sensitive short info like the theme, language, etc. So always use HTTPS, set HTTP only and secure flags for cookies. It's a question they ask me, what is the session hijacking? So session hijacking is a security attack where a hacker takes over a valid user session, usually by stealing the session ID to gain unauthorized access to a web application as if they were the legitimate user. So how does it work? When you log into a website, the server assigns you a unique session ID. This ID is usually stored in a cookie or passed via URL. If an attacker gets this session ID, they can impersonate you. Okay. So common ways attackers hijack session, method and description. So what are the common way to hijack the session? Okay. XSS cross-site scripting. Inject scripting into pages to steal cookies including session ID. Second, packet sniffing. Captures session data over encrypted non-HTTPS connections. Third, session fixation. Forces the users to use a non-session ID chosen by the attacker. Fourth, malware keyloggers. Installed on the user's device to capture session data. So now the question is how to prevent session hijacking. So use HTTPS SSL/TLS encrypted all data in transit. Regenerate session ID on login using the session regenerate ID true. Set cookie flags. HTTP only. Block JavaScript access. Secure. Sends cookies only over the HTTPS. Use short session timeouts and auto logout. Bind session to IP or user agent if possible. Avoid putting session IDs in the URL. Like login.php, you have a page called login.php. Login and show session ID. So PHP, then start the session start. Then session username Chandra. Echo logged in as $session username. Echo your session ID, show the session ID. Dashboard.php, access page with session. So session underscore start. If set is not session ID username, echo access denied, not logged in, exit. So echo welcome $session username. Another page you have the logout.php, session start, session destroyed, and echo logged in. So how to simulate hijacking in your local system. So first of all, create a open login.php in your browser. Copy the display session ID because we have echoed that session ID in the login.php. Okay. Open incognito or private mode or another browser. Manually set the session ID using a browser extension like the edit this cookie or write a simple hijack test file below. Simulate attacker file. So now you have to create another file hijack.php. $php session underscore ID. Then you have to paste the session ID here. Replace with the real ID. Then session start. So echo hijack. So user $session username and question mark no session. So it will hijack the session. So from the code point of view, how to prevent it? How can session hijacking be prevented? Okay. So session regenerate ID true on login. Init set session.cookie HTTP only 1. Init set session.cookie secure 1 only on HTTPS. IP user agent binding for session. So here is how to secure your PHP session system to help prevent session hijacking, including detecting and stopping it using the IP address and user agent binding. So first of all, you have to update your login.php. Okay, so session start, then secure session setting must be before session start if used with init. So init session.cookie HTTP only 1 ini underscore set session.use strict mode 1. So set session data $_session username Chandra, then bind IP and user agent $_session IP equal to $_server remote ADDR, then $_session user agent $_server HTTP user agent, then session underscore regenerate ID true prevent session fixation, then echo logged in as $_session username and echo session ID session underscore ID. So this is the login.php. Now you have to update dashboard.php. So hijack detection. So first of all, start the session underscore start, then detect possible hijacking. If not is set session username, so session IP equal to $_server remote ADDR. This is a super global. Okay. So then $_session user agent server HTTP user agent. Then echo session invalid or possible hijacking attempt. So session unset, session destroy, and then exit. So echo welcome underscore session username. Third is the logout.php, same as before. So session start, session destroy, echo logged out. So now try this. Log in via login.php. Copy session ID. Try using that ID in hijack.php with a different browser or IP. So hijack.php test hijacking attempt. $php session underscore ID. Paste session ID here. Replace with the stolen ID. Session start. Try to access dashboard now. Echo trying hijack. If is set session username, then echo username from session username. Else echo session not valid or data not found. So if you try this from a different browser or device, the dashboard will detect the IP user agent mismatch and block the session. So the bonus tip is the set session timeout optional in the dashboard.php. $timeout equal to 900, that is the second, so 15 minutes. If is set session last activity and end time minus session last activity greater than timeout. So session unset, session destroy, echo session expired, exit. So $session last activity time. Okay, so this is the 9th question. Now 10th question, he asked me, what is the caching in PHP? So caching is performance and reduce server load. So simple concept of cache in PHP, when a user visits a page without cache, PHP runs all code, queries, database and generates HTML every time. With cache, PHP checks if a saved version exists and shows it directly, skipping all processing. So why use cache? Speeds on page loading, reduce CPU database usage, save hosting, server cost, better user experience. So type of caching in PHP. Type what it stores and example use. So opcode cache, compiled PHP code. Example APCU opaque op cache default in PHP 7 plus. File cache HTML or JSON files. Stores rendered page data. Third, memory cache, key value in the RAM, Redis or Memcached. Database cache, database query results, cache heavy SQL queries. Object name, object cache, PHP objects or arrays in memory caching in app. So popular PHP cache tools, opcache built-in from PHP 7 plus, APCU shared memory cache, then Redis slash Memcached RAM-based fast grade for the large-scale apps. Laravel cache use Redis file database etc. Symfony cache component best practice cache data that doesn't change often. For example, menus, blog posts. Use cache expiration to keep data fresh. Invalidate update cache when original data changes. Monitor cache size and memory usage. So page cache in CodeIgniter 4. If you want to make a example. So in controller you have public function index and cache the page for 10 minutes. So this cache page 600, that is a 10 minutes. So return views. In app config cache.php, choose the handler. So public handler equal to file or Redis memcached. So data cache in CodeIgniter 4. Example, caching database results cache config service :cache. So key equal to product list, data equal to cache get key. If data triple equal to null, not in cache, fetch from the database. So $data equal to this product model find all. So $cache save key data 300 cache for 5 minutes. So return view products product data. So cache driver supported, you can use file default Redis memcached. Whatever cache folder for file based cache. So configure in the app/config/cache.php. So clear cache to clear data cache, $cache equal to config service :cache. Then cache delete product list, clear specific, cache clean, that is the clear all. To clear page cache, delete files in writable cache. Best practices: use page cache for static page like home or about. Use data cache for the database incentive logic like the dashboard stats. Set expiration times wisely. Clear or refresh cache when the source data updated. So now the differences or comparison between cookies, cache or memcache. So cookies, small data stored in the browser. Okay. Cache, temporary storage, and memcache, a RAM-based caching system. Purpose: cookies stores data like login preferences. Cache speed up app by avoiding repeated work. Memcached cache data or object in the RAM for speed. Storage location: cookies browser, that is a client side storage, cache browser server file database, and memcache server RAM runs as a service. Then who uses it? Cookies browser and server via headers, cache front-end browser cache or backend PHP, memcached backend used by PHP, Python, etc. Has expiry, cookies yes, set per cookies, cache yes, set per item or auto evicted, memcached yes, set per item or auto evicted. Size limit for cookies is near to 4 KB per cookies. Cache depends on the storage type, MB is possible. Memcached approximately 1 MB per item, total size depends on configuration. Best used for cookies, remember user preferences, cache pages, queries or views, memcached, cache database result, session data, API. So use when cookies, you need to store small user data, login token, language, cache file or browser. You want to avoid the regenerating pages or re-querying database. Memcached, you need super fast server-side caching, especially for large complex apps. For example, in the case of the cookies, set cookie username Chandra time plus 3600. So it will stores in the browser. Cache coordinator for file cache equal to config service : cache save key data 600 stores in file or Redis, etc. Memcached coordinator enable memcached in the app config cache.php. So public URL handler equal to memcached. So use it cache config services : cache and cache save user data user 300 stored in the RAM for the faster recipe. So in short, cookie browser side small data, cache temporary stored data anywhere, memcached ultra fast server RAM cache for the backend data. So 11th question they asked me, what is a trait in PHP? So PHP does not support multiple inheritance directly because a class in PHP can inherit from only one parent class. This restriction avoids the complexities and ambiguities of the diamond problem, which can occur in multiple inheritance scenario. So let us suppose you have a trait logger, public function log message, echo log message. Another trait notifier, public function notify message, echo notification message. Then you have a class user, use logger notifier, public function create user $name, echo user name created. This log created user $name. This notify user name has been added. So now you have to create one object, user equal to new user and super create user alias. Okay, so the output will be the user alias created, log created user alias, and notification user alias has been added. So 12th question they asked me, what is the difference between double equal to and triple equal to in PHP? And they gave me a code like the var underscore dump 5 double equal to and then 5 in the bracket. Another one he gave me var underscore dump 5 triple equal to and in the inverted comma 5. So what would be the output for these? So I said in the case of the double equal to, the output will be the bool true. In the case of the triple equal to, output will be the bool false. Okay. So then now the region. Let us suppose you have x triple equal to hello. So that is a strict comparison. Checks both values and types. does not perform type conversion. The operands must have the same type and value to return true. So if you have $x equal to hello, so where dump $x triple equal to hello, so the output will be true, same value and same type. If where dump $x triple equal to and you have created small h in the hello word, so the output will be false, same value but different case. Where underscore dump $x triple equal to 5, so the output will be the false, different type. So this was the case of the triple equal to. Now comes to the case of the double equal to. Let's suppose x double equal to let's suppose x double equal to hello. So this is a loose comparison. Perform type correction. If the types are different, PHP will attempt to convert one or both operand to a common type before making the comparison. So $x equal to hello, where dump $x double equal to hello, and the first letter of the hello is small h. So the output will be the false because case sensitive comparison. Where underscore dump 5 double equal to inverted comma 5, so the output will be the true, type Gaussian, string 5 is converted to a number. Okay, where dump 0 double equal to false, so the output will be true, type Gaussian, 0 is converted to false. Okay, so triple equal to is the strict comparison and double equal to is the loose comparison. So question number 14, they asked me, what are the inner join and left join in PHP? Okay, so inner join returns the rows where there is a match in both tables. Select employee ID as employee ID, employee's name, employee.name as employee name, departments.department name as department table from employees. This is the second table. Inner join departments. Okay, this is the table on employee.department ID equal to departments.id. So this will be the foreign key. Okay, they asked me the left join, so returns all rows from the left table and matched rows from the right table. If there is no match, null values are returned for columns from both right table. So select employees.id as employee ID, employee.name as employee name, departments.department name as department from employees. Left join departments on employees.department ID equal to departments.id. They asked me write an SQL query to fetch employees with salary more than 50,000. So select salary from courses where salary is greater than 50,000. 16th question, write an SQL query to get the last 3 salaries from an employees. So select salary from courses order by salary disk limit 3 offset 0. Even if you don't want to use offset 0, it will work. Write an query to get the last second salary of an employee. So select distinct salary from employees order by salary disk limit 1 offset, or limit 1 offset 1. Let me write it offset 1. Or if we don't want to use offset, then select distinct salary from employees order by salary disk limit 1 comma 1. So explanation, distinct salary ensures duplicate salaries are not counted multiple times. Order by salary disk, sort salary from highest to lowest. Limit 1 skips the top one salary and gives the first one, that is zero based index. So default time, another question, default time for session and cookies. So session default time is 24 minutes, that is 1440 seconds. So can be changed? Yes. Cookies, in the case of cookies, until browser is closed. So it also can be changed. Another question, that is the 19th question, they asked me, you have a class A and you have some methods inside class A. Another class is B and you have some method. Okay. So how to access class methods? So example 1, accessing method via object if we don't want to use inheritance. So class A, public function greet echo hello from class A. Okay. Now class B, public function call A. Okay. $A equal to new A. So new A means create object of a class A, and $A greet, that is the method. So call method for class A. So test $B equal to new B and $B class A. So output hello from class A. Okay. Example 2, accessing method via inheritance. Class B extends class A. So class A, public function greet echo hello from class A. Now class B extends A, public function greet again, another method, echo hello again from the class B. Now $B equal to new B, so that is a class. Okay. So $B greet and $B greet again. So greet is inherited from A and $B from B. Okay, so what's happening here? You have created two class A and class B, and class B extends A. Now you are creating an object of class B. $B equal to new B. Okay. Now $B greet, so it will inherit from A. $B greet again from A. In the case of the first one, what we did, class A and class B we made separately, but in the case of class B, inside we have created an object of class A and then A greet and call method of A. Okay, then outside the class we test $B equal to new B and $B call A. Call A is the method in class B. Okay. So the conclusion is type, syntax and notes. Object based. So object equal to new A, object method. So no relation needed between classes, means without using the inheritance. If you are using the inheritance, class B extends A, we can directly call age method. Okay. Next question, that is the question number 20. They asked me the dependency injection in PHP. I could not give the answer that time because I was confused between the SQL injection and dependency injection. So dependency injection is a design pattern where objects are passed into a class rather than the class creating them itself. So it helps to make code flexible, testable and maintainable and reduce tight coupling between classes. So step by step, simple dependency injection example. Imagine one class is a logger and another class is a user. So you have two classes. Okay. We want user to use the logger. But we don't want it to create the logger itself. Okay. So let's suppose you have a class logger, public function log message, echo log message. User class gets logger from outside. So class user private $logger. So dependency injection happens here through constructor. So public function double underscore construct logger. Logger is the first one. Okay. This logger equal to $logger. Public function create this logger log user created. So create logger object, log equal to new logger, inject logger into user. So user equal to new user $log. Call method user create, output log user reach created. So what happened here? Logger is created outside the user class. User class just uses it. That is the dependency injection. You inject what it depends on. Question number 21, they ask me what is the B2B and B2C. So B2B versus B2C. Simple explanation. B2B, business to business. One business sells to the another business. Example, TCS sells software to SBI. B2C, business to the customer. A business sells directly to the individual people, like Amazon sells to you. So B2B, business to business. Customers are companies or organizations. Bigger orders, long-term contract. Focus on relationship, efficiency and return or investments. That is ROI. For example, Microsoft selling offices to companies. Microsoft selling office to companies. Udan app, wholesale supplier platform. GEM, government marketplace. That is the B2B. Now comes to the B2C, business to the customer. Customers are individuals. Smaller purchases, faster decisions. Focus on emotion, experience and brand appeal. Example, Flipkart, Amazon, Netflix, Swiggy. Or a gym membership for a person. So quick differences summary. Feature B2B, B2C. Target B2B businesses, B2C individual consumers. Decision process B2B slow logical, B2C fast emotional. Quantity B2B large orders, B2C small individual purchases. Marketing B2B value and relationship, B2C emotions and benefits. So is GEM government marketplace B2B? So I have worked in the government marketplace. Okay, so that time we knew this is the B2G, that is the business to government. But okay, so technically GEM is the B2G platform. Okay, B2G means business to government. So why it is sometimes called B2B? Because sellers on GEM are businesses and they sell not to consumers but to a larger or large buyer, that is the government. It functions like B2B platform, but buyer is government only, not a private business. Okay, so as we know that in the government marketplace, buyers are the government's entity, like the central government, state government, or municipality, or even the PSUs. So these are the buyers in the GEM. But sellers, they may be the private entities or even government entity. So that is why we call it the B2G. So final answer is GEM is not strictly B2B. It's better categorized as B2G, that is business to government. But yes, it operates similar to the B2B in terms of the procurement, bulk orders and formal processes. Next question, that is the question number 22nd. INNODB and other MySQL storage engine, the interviewer asked me. So here is a simple breakdown of the four MySQL storage engines. INNODB, best for application needing transactions, data integrity and high concurrency. Key features: supports transaction, that is reliable data handling. Second, supports foreign key relationships between tables. Third, uses raw label locking, better performance when multiple users are accessing the data. Fourth, crash recovery to prevent data loss. So that is the INNODB. Second is the ISAM storage engine in MySQL. ISAM is indexed sequential access method. So best for older systems with system read heavy applications. So key features: no transactions, less reliable for complex operations, no foreign keys, no relationship between tables in ISAM. Table level locking, slower if multiple users are accessing data at the same time. Obsolete and not commonly used anymore. Third is the heap, that is the memory storage engine. Best for temporary fast data storage, example for caching or intermediate operations. Key features: in memory storage, extremely fast. Data disappears when the server restarts. No persistent data is lost when the system shuts down. And the fourth one is the ideal for the temporary data that doesn't need to be saved. So this is the heap, that is a memory storage engine. Fourth is the MyISAM SQL storage engine. So best for read heavy application that don't require transactions. Key feature: no transactions, no guarantee for the data consistency. Table level locking, slower if many users access the table at once. Supports full text indexing, useful for searching text. Faster for read operations but not ideal for the concurrent writes. So the final summary is INNODB, best for the application needing transaction and data safety. ISAM, old engines, no transaction or relationship, rarely used today. Heap, fast temporarily in memory storage and quick operations. MyISAM, good for read heavy applications but lacks support for transactions. So another question number 22. The interviewer asked me require and include. So require includes and evaluate the specific files. If the file is missing or the inclusion fails, it causes a fatal error, stopping the script execution. So for example, you have a file config.php and echo config file included. So main script require config.php includes the file, require config.php includes the file again. So the output config file included and config file included. Now the include. If the file is not found or cannot be included, PHP emit a warning and continue executing the script. So like include header.php, but if not found, the script continues. Echo page content. Okay. So this was the interview, and the company name is the CRM Travels IT Solutions, and the company location is Noida, and the interview date was the 5th July 2025, and this was the face-to-face interview. So I will share more interview question with you. Till then, bye.